So again, quite a different video today. I was just thinking the other day, browsing the forums and the Facebook groups, the various watch forums and Facebook groups that I'm on, that every time someone new gets into watches, they always have the same questions you had, the same questions I would have had. And as you progress through the hobby, you just see the same questions come up on these various different forums or Facebook groups all the time. So I figured I'd go through the 13 questions that I think are the most common and just give my response to them. And you may agree or may disagree, but hopefully this will help people that are new to watches. Maybe they'll watch this video and it will stop them making some of those mistakes that all of us tend to make. I'm going to have to look down now and again because my questions are there, so you'll just have to bear with me from that. So the first question is, what are the best strap changing tools, and should you use tweezers or spring bars? So this is one of those areas where you shouldn't really cheap out. Companies like Bergeon, I'll put a link in the description below. They make fantastic tools. Tweezers or spring bar, a single spring bar tool, it's kind of up to you. Personally, I had the tweezers and found them quite difficult to use. If you practice with them and get used to them, I think they become easier, but I found myself scratching my watches quite a lot using them. But the spring bar tool I actually find really quite easy to use, especially if you tape up the lugs of your watch properly. You pretty much don't scratch them when you get used to it and you can use it. The reason for these tools over the cheap Amazon tools are like 15 quid. I think a Bergeon spring bar tool is about 35, maybe 40 pounds. Whereas you can get a cheap one on Amazon for, I don't know, 15 quid. Is that the cut of the end of them where you're actually getting into the spring bar is more refined and it's a lot thinner and it's a lot easier to use. Whereas when you buy the cheaper ones, they seem to be quite dull points. The kind of middle bit where you're trying to grip the spring bar like this isn't usually that good, and you slip with them a lot, and they're just not a very well refined tool to use. Also with the Bergeon ones, you can actually buy a replacement head. So you just go onto their website, you unscrew one head, put another head, and you're good to go. So don't skimp on strap changing tools. Bergeon, there are other ones out there obviously, but I think they're fantastic. What makes some watches so expensive? So this comes up all the time. When you're kind of just getting into watches, and even friends of mine that don't like watches will find out or get wind of how much I paid for a watch through one of my channels, or well, this channel, I don't have more, or just talking to me and asking me, or just knowing what it is. And a common question is, what are you paying for? And it's difficult for people that don't like watches to understand, but ultimately it's broken down into a number of different factors. So you've got the bracelet, which if you've had cheap watches and expensive watches, when I say cheap, I mean 50 quid, couple of hundred quid, 500 quid, even up to £1,000. And then you've had £3,000–4,000 bracelets on watches. So you're talking like Tudor, Omega, Rolex, Zenith, IWC, etc. The differences are massive in terms of the tolerances where the links join together, the finishing of the bracelets themselves, the refinement of the way they're connected, so whether it's screws, pin and collar, and even screwed bracelets doesn't mean they're great. Sometimes the screwing systems are just really poor, not very well made, really poor tolerances, the screws thread themselves, and so on and so forth. So bracelets are actually an extremely hard thing to do, and an extremely hard thing to do well. So expensive watches, not always the case, should have, and generally do have, very well made bracelets. The same applies to clasps. If you handle a Seiko clasp or a Longines clasp, and then you move up to a Tudor or an IWC or Rolex again, as you talk about that, you'll notice a massive difference in the quality of the clasp that you're actually getting. So those two things, cheaper brands really struggle to do just because of how much engineering, time and effort needs to go into produce them. The cases themselves, unless they're specific materials like ceramic or gold or something, actually don't seem to be that difficult to make. And they seem to be quite easy to make very well. And that's why you've got all these great super fakes. So I don't think the case side of it is that big of a deal, unless you're starting to talk about like De Bethune, and they've got those crazy spring-loaded case things on them. Other than that, they all seem to be really quite straightforward to make. So I wouldn't say the case is a big factor. Dial finishing is a big factor. So you look at Grand Seikos, they obviously put a huge amount of time, Patek Philippe's, they put a huge amount of time and effort into their dial finishing, and then obviously the dial hardware. So when you're talking about the hardware, you're looking at the hands, the applied markers and so on. They're typically on more expensive gold, more expensive watches white gold rhodium plated, and that just gives you extra luster, and it's more expensive to do that. There's more effort that goes into finishing and making them, and you can see it under loupes. With the cheaper watches and the more expensive watches I've had, you can see the quality of the dials, the quality of the hardware under loupes. It's significantly different. Movement, obviously movements make a massive difference. Are you using an off-the-shelf movement? Are you using an in-house movement? Are you using an off-the-shelf movement that you've modified and then calling an in-house movement and so on? But movements are the single biggest factor when you're talking about pricing, not just the complexity, but also the finishing. And then obviously brand plays a massive part in that. So there's no denying there is a point at which you're not getting value for money, and that varies from brand to brand and price bracket to price bracket. So you just need to do your research and work out whether the watch is worth it or whether it's not, based on all those factors. How many is too many watches? Why do people talk about one watch and 3 watch collections? So how many watches is too many is completely down to the individual. I always thought I'd get to 6 nice watches, then my G-Shock, and then 2 sentimental watches that I've always had. I've got to 4, and since I bought this Zenith Pilot, I'm really struggling to wear my other watches. I don't know if it's still because I'm in the honeymoon period or not, but it might be that 4 is too much for me. I don't know. I'll keep experimenting. Some people have 50, 60, 200 watches. It all depends on the individual, so there is no set figure. One watch collections, that's everyone's dream, right? You wake up, you put on the same watch. You don't have to worry or think about what watch you're going to wear, what occasion you're going out for, if you're just going out in shorts and t-shirt, if you're going to a wedding. So one watch collection was not even a collection at that point, is it? The idea is it can be worn on dressy occasions, it can be worn in going to the beach, shorts and t-shirt, going out with your mates. And typically for me, that would be something like Vacheron Constantin Overseas Dual Time, because it has a leather strap, a bracelet and a rubber strap. So you can dress it up, dress it down. That for me would be an amazing one watch collection. 3 watches is simply distilling that one watch down into 3. Dress watch, a everyday watch, and then even more tally bashy about watch. But does it matter? Does it matter if you've got 3, 1, 20, 100? No, it doesn't. Everyone's collections will grow and shrink as their tastes and what they want changes, and as they earn money or lose money or whatever. So ultimately, just get what you like. Are there watches I should buy? Right, okay, this one annoys me. So everyone seems to think they should own certain watches. Everyone should own a Speedmaster at some point. Everyone should own a Rolex Submariner at some point. Everyone should own a Seiko SKX at some point. No, there are no specific watches you should own. If you like the look of a particular watch, buy it. If you don't buy it. It's that simple, and that goes for any price category, any price point. Don't be swayed by popular opinion about what watches you should and should not own. It's just not how it should be. Buy what you like and you'll be far happier and far more satisfied than buying what you think you should buy. Should I buy a watch on the bracelet or a strap? So lots of watches come offered on either bracelets or NATOs or rubber straps or whatever, and you can choose. And typically at RRP, there's not a lot of money difference to whether you choose a watch on a bracelet or on a strap. You should always buy the watch on the bracelet, because to buy a bracelet after the fact is typically between £800 and £1,500, depending on the brand and quality and what's going on with it, but typically about that. To buy a rubber strap or a NATO strap afterwards, 200-300 quid, and that will include a clasp. So you should always buy a watch on the bracelet, and then if you want the strap, buy it afterwards, or even better, buy it on the bracelet and try and negotiate getting the strap and clasp thrown in. But you will have lots of regret if you buy it on a strap and then later decide you want to buy the bracelet, unless you can find it second hand. Should I buy the watch I like, or hang on a sec. Right, okay. Should I buy the watch I like or the watch that has better value retention? Again, buy what you like. Lots of people will look at different watches, and it's only been in the last 10 years or so, very much so in the last 5 years, that people have really cared about value retention. Before then, every watch would lose money. Every watch. You buy it, 99.9% of watches would lose money. You buy it, you walk out the showroom, you've lost between 5 and 20%, depending on the brand, depending on the model, and so on and so forth. If value retention is a big deal for you, Are you going to wear that watch a lot? No, because you'll be worried about scratching it, worried about putting wear on it, worried about then having to get it serviced, having it polished, reducing the value of the watch. So if you're buying a watch based on its value retention, the likelihood is you're not going to wear it and you're not going to enjoy it. So if the watch you like happens to retain value well, have at it. Brilliant. If it doesn't, just make sure that you look at how much it's going to depreciate, maybe buy it used, or maybe buy it through a grey market, or try and negotiate a discount at the AD so you feel comfortable that you've tackled some of that loss. So if you know the watch is going to lose around 15%, try and get a 5, 10, 15% discount, and then you've tackled some of that loss. Also, if you're going to keep the watch for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, doesn't matter. If you're not planning on selling it, doesn't matter. So I've got 2 watches I don't ever intend to sell. If they lose all their money, if they don't, it doesn't matter. Obviously, I'll be disappointed if they lost all their money, but I'm expecting them to lose an amount and then pretty much stay at that level. So there are a few factors to think about there, but ultimately, again, just buy what you like. And if you know it's going to take a loss, try and mitigate that loss as best you can. What is a Grail watch? People talk about Grail watches all the time. For me, a Grail watch is essentially an unachievable or extraordinarily aspirational watch. It's not something where if I save up for 2 or 3 years, I can go and buy it. That's not a Grail watch for me. A Grail watch for me personally is kind of out of reach. And this will be different for different people depending on their financial situation. But yeah, for me, I would probably have to sell all my watches to buy that and put money into it just to achieve it. And it would have to hurt. It's kind of a hurt to the wallet because it's quite an expensive purchase. So yeah, for me, a Grail watch isn't say 2 or 3, 5 years buy it. A Grail watch is you might never own it. And if you do, it'd be a fantastic thing to do, but it's something that's going to financially be a bit painful because it's the holy grail of what you're trying to achieve. Different people have different views on Grail watches. That's what I think about them. My friend or family wants to buy a watch. What watch should I buy them? I feel quite strongly about this. So lots of people ask this question and then go and buy a watch for their friend or family based on some loose criteria that they've given them. For me, and my dad asked a very similar question, I said I would rather get the money together, give it to you, and then we go watch shopping together. Because as we all know, in this hobby, until you try a watch on, you genuinely don't know if you're going to like it or not. You might love all the renders of it, you might love it on other people's wrists, you put it on, doesn't look right, maybe it's not very comfortable, maybe you can't get the right fit, maybe it overhangs your wrists a bit, and so on and so forth. So for me, it's a big part of the joy and fun is the chase. It's doing all the research, looking at lots of different watches, going to lots of authorized dealers, trying on lots of watches, and then narrowing it down to 2 or 3 or that one, and then buying it. So I think you're giving someone a far better gift if you're giving them that experience of buying the watch as well as buying the watch itself. So that's just my personal view, and yeah, that's what I did with my dad, and that's what I would always recommend to anybody in that position. Is an in-house movement better than a non-in-house movement? So I'm not going to get into the percentages of in-house, what classifies as in-house, what isn't in-house. Ultimately, it's up to you as an individual. It does have some cachet to it. If it's a special movement, if it's a particularly complicated movement, so lots of people will make their own perpetual calendars or their flyback movements or their annual calendars or their tourbillons or double tourbillons or whatever. If that is appealing to you, it's appealing to you. The only caveat that comes with in-house movements is that you are forced to service your watch through that vendor, through that company, and there will be an expense with that, and that will be more than buying an ETA or a modified ETA movement in another watch. If an ETA movement or modified ETA movement or Sellita movement or whatever can be moderated to within really tight tolerances, which lots of them can. A lot of them, the higher end ones, the Elabor or Elabor, whatever it's called, can be regulated to within COSC certification. So it really comes down to, does it mean a lot to you? It's very much a sales pitchy thing. And also, do you care about the cost of servicing that watch? Because it will be significantly more expensive to service an in-house movement over not. Really, it's bragging rights for the brand. It means that they can sell the movement to other people if they want. And so on and so forth. So again, it's kind of up to you. Do you want an in-house movement or not? Do you want the costs that go with it? It is what it is. You know, pay your money, take your choices. should I use a watch winder? Again, this comes up a lot as well. There's lots of differing views on this. Some people like to let their watches settle and do nothing. Some people think that it's going to add wear to the watch if you're constantly having it on a winder. And ultimately it will, right? If it's a mechanical movement with mechanical parts rubbing against each other, no matter how well lubricated, it will wear the watch faster. But if you're wearing that watch every day, it's really, really trivial. Winders are really for people that have 3, 4, 5 watches. They want to pick up any one of those 3, 4, 5 watches at any given time and wear it. Simple as that, really. It's not really a matter of the wear or whether the oils in the watch will congeal, because I've asked a number of watchmakers about this and they said that the oil viscosity is so fine, it's such a fine oil, it just doesn't coagulate, it doesn't get thick and then goopy, unless a watchmaker's just done something stupid. It just doesn't happen. So what I tend to do is have my watches static in a watch box and every now and again just go in, give them a full wind and let the movement do its thing, because just like a car, you want those mechanical components to be working on and off to make sure the watch is working fine and kept in good condition. So winders, if you've got lots of watches, you don't know which one you're going to pick up, 4 or 5, put them on a watch winder and then it's ready to go. That's my view on that. Should I insure my watches, and if so, how? So I do insure all my watches. My watches are insured through my contents and building insurance. They're insured for me to take them out the home as well as in the home. They will specify sometimes that it needs to be in a safe or it needs to be in a bank vault, depending on the insurance company that you're with. The big sticking point is how much will a company be willing to insure per individual limit. So I recently just went through my contents and building insurance again, and because my Zenith is worth £12,000, a number of companies just weren't even willing to insure me as a policyholder in general for building and contents, or even contents, because it breached their £10,000 individual limit policy. So I ended up with a company called Admiral, and their individual limit item is £25,000. So I'm well within that, but anything over £10,000 needs to be kept in a safe when you're not wearing it. And I'm absolutely happy with that. There were no specific specifications that were required for the safe. There were no specific rules, like it had to be bolted to a wall or anything like that. Just keep it in a safe. So that's how I choose to do it. It then means if my watches are stolen, if I drop my watch and the case gets mashed, or if this one, the ceramic, it cracks or chips, I can send it off. There's a small excess, I think £200 or £300, and that will cover it. It will cover the entire thing. So yes, I do insure my watches, absolutely, and I put them through my building and contents insurance. Does this watch look good? Oh, does this watch look good on my wrist? I will never understand why people give a monkeys what other people think. If you buy a watch and it overhangs your wrist because you're a small guy or woman and you love the look of it, just buy it. If you post that picture on a forum, you will get harassed. People will just be like, "That was way too big. Why haven't you been working out? Why is your wrist so small? Well, look at the way it overhangs your wrist." And the opposite is true as well. If it's too small, people will just rip you to shreds for that. If you like the way the watch looks on your wrist, buy it. If you put a picture of that on any forum or Facebook group, you will get flamed, and you will get all the comments that come with that type of stupidity that people have. If you like it, that's it. That's why it's so important to try these watches on before you buy them. Will buying X watch satisfy my itch for Y watch? No. Simple answer, it won't. If you've been watching my channel, I've been trying to buy something to satisfy my itch for a Polar Explorer 2 for 8 years. And nothing will do that until I buy that Polar Explorer 2. That will probably be my next watch. Buying a Tudor will not satisfy your itch for a Rolex. Buying a complicated Zenith will not satisfy your itch for a Patek Philippe. Buying a, Laureato, who makes those? I do know, I can't remember the top of my head. Will not satisfy your itch for an Audemars Piguet. Okay, it just won't. You think it will? It's a little bit cheaper. It's a bit more attainable. It might be a nice watch to have on your journey to that watch that you want, but it will not satisfy your itch for the ultimate end game watch. So that's it. We're at 20 minutes. I hope this has been helpful. I hope people have found it useful. If you've got any questions or comments, as always, leave them below. Thank you.